Coming back to our topic of migration. So syllabus mentions causes of migration, and another thing is causes, it mentioned causes and consequences of migration. But if the syllabus is just mentioning causes of migration, it does not mean that we will be just focusing upon the causes of migration. Can I say, when we are studying certain phenomena, we inevitably have to study the pattern. So although it is not mentioned, we will also study the pattern of migration. Causes may, you can understand, migration is a complex phenomena, and because of this complex phenomena, what we will do, we will focus upon this complexity by studying the theories which have been given with respect to the idea of migration. So we will be talking about number of theories which have been given with respect to the migration, and then we will see the consequences of migration. But before I just continue with this topic of migration, we have to understand that migration is a topic which you can score very high marks. There are certain rules just you have to follow about the migration topic. You have to remember certain basic vocabulary of migration. Okay? So there are several type of vocabularies related with migration. Like for example, migration can be classified into number of types. Like for example, if I classify migration from the factor of distance. In fact, just before that, if I just tell you what is actually migration. What is migration? Okay. How many of you remember that there was one person referred to as Mills? And Mills talked about this idea, and Mills said that one of the solutions of the problem of overpopulation was that you can export people. Yaad hai? So can I say migration essentially is an attempt to ensure or to correct the population resource ratio? It is an attempt to correct the population resource ratio. Through migration, we will be finding migration generally happens from overpopulated areas towards under or optimum populated areas where there are greater opportunities. In overpopulated, हमने last class में भी देखा था that it was the second stage of demographic transition when the migration transition also begins. So what happens in the migration transition, because there is in the second stage there is a scenario of overpopulation which begins to rise. As a result of which what we will be finding that there would be ultimately less resources compared to the total number of people. Thus people will be forced to ultimately look at new areas where there is availability of more resources. That is essentially what is the attempt of migration. Although we will see that migrations can be of various types. For example, one type of migration can be involuntary migration. And in involuntary migration, even if you do not want, then what will happen? You will have to migrate. Like take the case of refugees, like take the case of internally displaced persons. Okay? So that is what we will see is migration all about. So here we have already seen two important components of population change. If you want to change population, one way is the mortality. Mortality can lead to changes in the population. The other change can be brought by greater fertility or lower fertility. So fertility is another important factor, component of population change. But there is a third factor of population change, and that is very clearly the factor of migration. For example, देखेंगे fertility, if you compare the fertility of US and Canada. ठीक है, दोनों की फर्टिलिटी को कंपेयर करेंगे तो विल बी फाइंडिंग दैट इन कनाडा द TFR इज समवेयर अराउंड 1.7, while in US the TFR is around 1.9. Now, why this difference? We will be finding that actually the fertility and mortality rates are same in case of Canada and US with respect to their native white population. Okay, with respect to the European population which is living there. But in case of Canada, the migration is more selective. Okay, migrants which are coming, they are more selectively chosen. Like particularly, for example, they favor Indians. Indians are said to be very, very loyal, very hard-working population. So again, there also when it comes to the Indian population, they favor more skilled population. So when this type of population is coming, a skilled population, an educated person like engineer, doctors, can I say they would ultimately try to simulate the natives, their behavior, their fertility behavior would be very similar to the natives. So in that case what will happen, their fertility would also be lower. So in Canada we will be finding the fertility tends to remain lower. But in case of USA, can I say there is lots of migration taking place from Central America. There is also large amount of illegal migration. देखेंगे अभी illegal migration. So can I say this illegal migration is one of the basic factors which is leading to what? Which is leading to presence of unskilled laborers. Lots of unskilled laborers are present in US. And presence of this population, can I say this population would have higher fertility rates? The TFR in this part of the population would be higher. As a result of which what will happen? As a result of which we'll be finding that the overall, the average fertility of US would increase. It becomes 1.9. So here which is the factor which is determinative factor? Can I say it is the in-migration? The type of migration, the characteristic of migration, which becomes the determining factor. So this factor ultimately determines the population change. ठीक है? Other places also देखेंगे, like I'll show you. Like if you look into the case of state like Kerala, एक मिनट रुक जाओ, चेक कर लेता हूँ, होना तो चाहिए. Okay. If you look into this age pyramid of Kerala, can you see there is difference in the age pyramid of Kerala? And can you see in the working age population, men, there are less number of men. Can you see that? The sex ratio in Kerala would be what? It would be higher. Here there are less number of men. Can you see here the bulge in Kerala is in this 30-50 age group or in the working age group, 25-50 के बीच में this bulge is there. But can you see a similar bulge towards the male side is absent? साफ दिख रहा है? Can I say one of the main reason why it is taking place is what? Because there is out migration taking place from Kerala towards which area? It is the Middle East. Kerala is the most important state of India which provides these out migrants towards the Middle East. Okay? So again what we find there is, which factor becomes the main factor which is bringing population change? It is the migration factor. So migration is a very, very dominant factor which is bringing this population change. More importantly, you can understand आज के times में देखेंगे तो can I say internal migration is in India की अगर हम बात करें, it is unhindered. You cannot stop. Constitution provides the rights for people to move and settle anywhere in India and practice their occupation. So it would be what? It would be less restricted. Although internationally you can understand today there are lots of restrictions, and thus it would not be so much powerful instrument to bring the population change. Although in some of the countries we will see that it is the only way left to bring out this population change. देखा है हमने already? The developed world countries, they have no other options now left. Why Australia like country which was a total colonial mindset country, a white racist country, whose policy was determined by the color of skin, migration policy, was forced to ultimately relax its migration policy in 1990s. So why it was forced to relax? Because it could see that there was no other option to increase fertility. If it wouldn't have done, then its economy would have slowed down because there would not have been enough number of laborers, enough number of workers to fuel the economy. Okay? So that is basically the case of the role of migration. So which determine the population growth and demographic structure of country or society. Migration is a permanent or semi-permanent. What is migration first of all? यहाँ पर उसका definition लिखा हुआ है, is a permanent or semi-permanent change of residence of an individual or group of people over significant distance. Over significant distance. So अगर एक मकान से दूसरे मकान में चले गए, it is not migration. It is just shifting your residence. So अभी मैंने कुछ दिन पहले DLF में A ब्लॉक से N ब्लॉक में शिफ्ट किया. So that is not migration. Migration is for what? It is for a significant distance. First of all, it is permanent or semi-permanent change of residence. So a person going suppose from one city to other city for a period of time, significant period of time, that is basically we'll be calling it as migration. Okay? So suppose people are coming to Delhi to study. Students are coming to study in Delhi University. It is what? It is semi-permanent change of residence. So this would be referred to as the phenomena of migration. Okay? So migration, that is what we call it as migration. It can be international, intranational or internal, inter-regional, intra-urban, rural to urban or urban to rural. Variety of अभी देखते हैं उसको. On the basis of distance, देखो. So this is what we mean by migration. Migration is very clearly different from other activities, like for example, transhumance. Transhumance is essentially what? It is seasonal movement for some specific purpose associated with the season. Like for example, in India there is Gaddis and Bakarwal tribes. They take their herds on the upper slopes of the Himalayas. As the ice melts and the marg or the pastures open up. So again, this type of activity is what it is referred to as transhumance. Transhumance is very clearly not migration, because migration is permanent or semi-permanent in nature. Here it is not semi-permanent, it is for only a small period of time. So it cannot be called as essentially migration. Okay? Similarly, there are other activities like commutation. Commutation is essentially what? Daily movement. Like for example, number of people are commuting from Ghaziabad to Delhi, Meerut to Delhi, Greater Noida to Delhi, Gurgaon to Delhi. Okay? So this activity is referred to as what? It is referred to as commutation. So commutation is also not migration, because it is not permanent or semi-permanent. So these activities are treated as differently. They are not migration. Okay? So that is one thing about migration. Now migration, there are certain terminologies that we have to understand. When we are talking about migration, migration occurs from a source area, source region to destination. Source region to a destination region. ठीक है? So three important components of migration. अगर मुझे तीन important components ढूंढने हैं, तो can I say one important is the source region, second important component is the destination region, third important component can I say are the migrants themselves. These are the migrants themselves. ठीक है? Now अब मुझे एक simple सा एक आंसर दो. If I have to write on a question, एक question पूछा जाता है, examine the consequences of migration. Can I say, जब मैं consequences की बात करूंगा, will I talk about consequences in the source region? Will I talk about consequences with respect to the destination region? Will I talk about consequences on the migrants themselves? ठीक है? That is the significance of understanding, breaking the things into components. You'll be better able to take on the questions. So that is the first very important thing with respect to migration. दूसरा चीज देखो, if I have to suppose write on the pattern of migration in the world or India or anywhere, can I say when I will be answering this pattern of migration, will I talk about what is the source region from where the migrants are coming? Can I say that? Will I mention where these migrants are going? What is their destination areas? Will I also mention about the characteristics of the migrants? Young hai, male, female, ठीक है? Skilled, unskilled, semi-skilled. Can I say we'll be talking about these characteristics? Whether it is selective or non-selective. If it is selective, there would be mostly male. If it is non-selective, all types of people would be there, like in the case of refugee migrants. Okay? So again, there would be various terminologies that you have to understand this. So that is one aspect of migration. Then we can classify migration on the basis of number of aspects. Like for example, one classification of migration can be on the basis of distance. Distance. So on the basis of distance, can I say we can classify migration into short distance, medium distance and long distance migration. Long distance migration. So there would be three types of migrations we will see. अभी देखेंगे. So जब मैं अपनी writings लिख रहा हूँ, suppose मुझे pattern में लिखना है, can I keep on using such type of words? Short distance, whether it is short distance, medium distance, long distance migration, I can keep on using such words. Similarly, migration can also be classified on the basis of nature of settlement. Can we classify migration on the basis of nature of settlement? So, if I talk about nature of settlement, can I say migration can be rural migration? Migration can be rural to urban migration. Migration, can it be urban to urban? Can migration also be urban to rural? So ये भी क्लासिफिकेशन कहीं कहीं पर यूज किया जा सकता है. इंडिया में जब हम माइग्रेशन, इंटरनल माइग्रेशन पढ़ेंगे तो we will essentially use this criteria of how migration has taken place in case of India. ठीक है, on the basis of settlement systems, on the basis of nature of political boundary. Also we can classify, can we say that we can classify migration into two types? International migration and second one is the internal migration. Difference is, in international migration what happens? A person is crossing the international boundaries. In internal migration he is just within the internal boundaries migrating. Now international migration की भी बात करें तो can we classify that this into further categories? बहुत सारे categories हो सकते हैं. मैं जो category use करता हूँ which is very useful, can I say I can call this migration as north-north migration, south to north migration, south to north migration. Can I say it can also be north to south migration? Can it be south to south migration? So again, international migration को भी हम classify कर सकते हैं. Like for example, यहाँ पे I could have used the word developed, developing, वो भी use कर सकते थे. ठीक है, it is up to me which one I want to use. Similarly, internal migration को भी classify कर सकते हैं. Like हम इंडिया के केस में classify करते हैं. We call one type of migration as intra-district migration. Can I say there can be intrastate migration? There can be interstate migration. बहुत सारे जो हम टर्म्स यूज कर रहे हैं they are just overlapping. Like international migration, can I say it is a long distance migration essentially? Internal migration में intra-district would be what? Short distance. Intra-state would be medium distance. And interstate would be what? Long distance migration. ठीक है? So many of them are just overlapping, just we are using different perspectives to talk about them. So on the basis of the political boundaries, we can look into the causes, the migration. Then we can also look into the migrations on the basis of the will of people. Will of the people. So you tell me, can I say there can be two types of migrations? Voluntary migration and there can be involuntary migration. Involuntary migration को एक और term से बोल सकता हूँ. Can I say it is essentially an example of forced migration? It is an example of forced migration. अब इसमें force जो लगी है वो कई तरीके की हो सकती है. Like for example, you tell me, can I say such type of involuntary migration can be result of human-made causes? Human-made causes like war. ठीक है? So it can be result of human-made causes. Can I say it can be also as a result of natural causes? Like for example, if there is severe drought occurring in case of Somalia, which is leading to frequent epidemics. As a result, people are forced to migrate in Ethiopia. Can I say it is an example of climate forced migration? Okay, climatic migration. So again, it can be variety of types. Same thing, voluntary migration can be of two types in basic terms. It is one type of voluntary migration is also forced migration. It is also forced migration. Or forced से ज़्यादा better word है. In fact, I am using here. One is push-based migration, and second one is the pull-based migration. ठीक है, push-based and pull-based. So you take the case of rural areas. In rural areas, there is extreme poverty. People have not got employment, as a result of which they are unable to feed their children, family properly. Now, this is essentially doing what? This is forcing them to migrate. It is pushing them to migrate. But you tell me, can I say despite this fact, one thing can be asserted that the choice of migration is still with them? It is still with them. There are number of people who are living in rural areas in that poverty. They are still alive. यहाँ पर choice नहीं था, because if they wouldn't have moved here, they would have died simply. There it was still a choice with them, whether they would be going or not. There are so many rural areas, rural people who are not preferring out to move because they are not comfortable in newer areas. So this type of migration is what? It is a push-based migration. On the other hand, pull-based migration की बात करें, can I say, suppose I am talking about rural to urban migration. In rural areas, there are rich people. There are zamindars who have lots of land, who have very good standards of living. Despite that, their children, what they are doing? In search of education, employment, they are migrating towards the city. Can I say this is an example of a pull-based migration? They are getting pulled towards better, more lucrative opportunities. So that is basically what? It is a pull-based migration. You tell me, urban migration would be categorized as push-based or pull-based? It would be pull-based migration, because they are already living in urban area. They are going towards other urban area in search of better opportunity. Okay? So again, that is another term that we have to keep in our mind while we are talking about migration. Similarly, migration can be classified on the basis of the causes. One of the basic causes of migration, we'll see worldwide the biggest migration occurs. It is essentially short distance migration. And this short distance migration, the most important cause is social cause of migration. And the social cause is related with the patriarchal nature of the society, where females are, after marriage, they have to change their residence. Okay? So we will see all over the world, we will see that this is the biggest stream of migration which is taking place. But we will see that this type of migration is essentially short distance migration. When it comes to medium and long distance migration, very clearly the most important cause of such migration is economic causes. So such type of migration is essentially related with what? It is essentially related with the economic factors. People want employment, opportunities, economic opportunities. Okay? So that is the most important factor of medium to long distance migration. But can I say these migrations can be result of other factors like political causes? Political causes. For example, if millions of Jews migrated from countries like Germany, France, Italy during the Second World War or before the Second World War, can I say it was essentially related with the political cause? It was essentially a political cause. If lots of Syrians today are migrating towards Turkey, can I say it is essentially related with a political cause? Political, I could have written also geopolitical. Okay? So again, we find that that is another type of cause. Then there can be other type of causes, and other type of causes can be there, like for example disasters can be other cause of migration. You can understand these hazards and disasters can be natural as well as human made. ठीक है? So all these terms and terminologies जिसको याद हो गया उसको माइग्रेशन का आंसर लिखना बहुत इजी हो जाएगा, because migration is just based upon all these vocabularies. ठीक है? इसके अलावा माइग्रेशन में और क्या कर सकते हैं एनरिच करने के लिए? एक दो चीजें हम कर सकते हैं. अभी हमने बात किया फॉर एग्जाम्पल सोर्स रीजन, डेस्टिनेशन रीजन. सो अगर मैं इसको सोर्स रीजन 1 मान लूं, सोर्स रीजन 2, source region 3, can we say that we can talk about, I can show this through flow diagrams. Flow diagrams like this. Suppose अगर मैं एक छोटा सा एग्जाम्पल दूं, suppose I take this as USA, I take this as Mexico, I take this as rest of Latin America, or sorry, this one, rest of Latin America, and this is rest of world. So again, this gives me what? This gives me an idea of how in US the migration is taking place, which is the most important area from where the migration is occurring. ठीक है? अब मैं चाहता तो इसको सिंपली वर्ल्ड मैप बना करके ये फ्लो लाइंस दिखा सकता था. इट इज अप टू मी what is the method I want to choose. It is up to you totally. You can use your own method, you can simplify like जैसे मैंने यहाँ पर simplify कर दिया. I am also taking lesser amount of time to draw this diagram. कह सकते हैं? Rather than drawing a map, it would be taking less time for me to draw this such type of diagram. So I just have to show it through the flow lines, because my personal experience tells me that it is very difficult to remember the data, figures of how much migration occurred. So those figures should be converted to such type of flow lines of migration. ठीक है? Like for example, अभी डायग्राम मैंने दिखाया था तुम लोगों को शायद. Can you see this? It is another diagram showing migration, where Europe to Asia, Asia to Asia, Africa, North America. Again, you can see the various flow lines have been made here. And in these flow lines, it is simply trying to show that how much migration is taking place. It is not properly drawn here. They should have used the thickness of the lines to depict that how this migration is taking place. Okay? So these are the key of getting good marks in the topic of migration. आगे बढ़ते हैं. On the basis of numbers, it may be individual or mass migration, for example. और भी categories हो सकती हैं. Individual or mass migration. On the basis of selection हो सकता है. Selective, non-selective migration. ठीक है. On the basis of cause, it may be politically sponsored or voluntary. On the basis of social organization, migration may be that of family, community, clan, individual. On the basis of causes, migration may be economic, social, cultural, religious or political. Migration may be stepwise phenomena through many intervening phases or direct from place of origin to the destination. So it can happen that migrants can follow a specific way the stepped migration process. अभी रेवेंस्टीन पढ़ेंगे तो I'll talk about what is the stepped migration process. ठीक है. But it can also happen that migrants can directly move to that place. So suppose एक सिविल सर्विसेज एस्पिरेंट जो बिहार में रहता है उसकी बात करें तो उसका स्टेप बाय स्टेप प्रोसेस है. सबसे पहले प्रिपरेशन के लिए वो जाएगा पटना. ठीक है. एंड देयर ही विल कम टू नो कि नो, पटना में देयर इज नो कोचिंग्स आर अवेलेबल एंड अल्टीमेटली देयर इज आई शुड गो समवेयर एल्स. सो ही विल देन फाइंड आउट दैट इलाहाबाद इज अ बेटर प्लेस. सो फिर वो इलाहाबाद पहुंच जाएगा. वहां पर एक साल रहने के बाद बाबा लोग मिलेंगे. दे विल मेक हिम टू मच नेगेटिव टुवर्ड्स लाइफ, टुवर्ड्स एवरीथिंग. सो ही विल फील कि ये भी सही जगह नहीं है, लेट अस गो समवेयर एल्स. देन ही विल बी रीचिंग टुवर्ड्स दिल्ली. सो देयर कैन बी टू सिनेरियोज. द माइग्रेंट्स कैन डायरेक्टली रीच टू द अल्टीमेट डेस्टिनेशन. देयर आर पीपल हु आर डायरेक्टली कमिंग. Or a second scenario where the migration can be step by step process. So this is what is written here. Migration may be a stepwise phenomena through many intervening phases, or direct from place of origin to place of destination. ठीक है. In general, migration is an attempt. अभी जो हमने बात बोली थी, it is an attempt to correct the population resource ratio between the regions. Migration is an important demographic factor that affects the changing population distribution across the world. So examples like total population growth is what? It is result of, I would simply say total population growth is source region में, it is result of the natural growth plus यहाँ पर दोनों में, चाहे source region हो चाहे जो भी हो, I can simply write as net migration. Net migration. So net migration is essentially what? It is immigration minus migration. That is the net migration result. So कहीं पर भी हो, it is the net migration which is there plus net migration. Natural growth plus net migration. So that is the demographic change it is determining. As we said, causes of migration can be of many types. Like for example, one type of cause is the push-based migration which is taking place. The causes which are related to the source region, such as economic causes, social factors, natural hazards, man-made decisions, wars, etc. Several of them can be the causes. अभी हमने देखा. Like यहाँ पर देख सकते हो social causes. Like in India, we'll be finding many migrations are taking place because of social factors. One such factor is caste rigidities. So many times we will find that people located in a rural area or in a village belonging to the lower caste, they many times find it difficult to cope with the atrocities, cope with the injustice which is done to them. Thus they decide that they are fed up now. And because of the being fed up, ultimately what they would do, they would migrate. They would migrate towards newer areas. These newer areas can be even short distance. Like for example, both cases हुए after independence. After independence, government came up with the land reform policy. And in land reform policy, there was surplus distribution of land, distribution of surplus land. So under this scheme, ultimately what happened, there were a number of people who ultimately got land. So some of them decided कि फालतू में या गांव में रह करके, village में रह करके क्यों इनकी जेलें? Why we listen to these people? Why not we have land? Why not we go and settle in those lands? Because many times these lands were far away from the village also. So ultimately what happened, many people settled into newer areas. You'll be finding, in fact, बाद में देखेंगे that in India there has been emergence of certain type of villages where there is presence of only one caste. You'll very frequently find. So again, how such type of villages came into existence? They came into existence because of this factor of migration. Okay? People migrated. So suppose like for example, I will talk about later on. My village, which is located in Ghazipur district, there is Tarighat, is my village. And where there is Tarighat, there is one Mednipur. So what is taking place there? This is mainly a village made up of Yadavs. Total, the community is the Yadav community. So how? Because they were before living here and they found that there was lots of injustice, lots of problems in the village. So what happened, as they got their land was distributed to them. In fact, my grandfather used to tell me that उस समय होता ये था कि these people were so downtrodden and ultimately so much poor that they were so much afraid of taking the land. When government was giving land, distributing land, so उन्होंने मना कर दिया भैया हमें नहीं चाहिए, जान प्यारी है, लैंड वैंड तो ठीक है चलेगा. इनफैक्ट वो लैंड देने के लिए so many members of the community, they were kept in jail कि नहीं तुम्हें लैंड लेना है. उनको जेल में भी बंद कर दिया गया. Ultimately, they got the land, and later on some of the progressive people would have thought कि it is better we leave this village and settle here, near our land. So they began to settle. एक गया, उसकी success story को देख करके बाकी भी follow किए. So it becomes, once a migration starts, migration occurs along a particular streams, paths. So there was establishment of a stream of migration. Okay? So again we'll see that such type of village came into existence. So that is here we are talking about several social factors. Abhi dekho, so you'll be finding, like for example, you take the case of Western UP. In Western UP there is lots of religious polarization, communal polarization which has taken place now. As a result of which we'll be finding lots of minorities are fleeing their villages and they are settling into newer areas. So again, it is what? It is an example of a social factor becoming very, very important cause of migration. एक हमने देखा था, marriage is a universal factor. Similarly, if you talk about pull-based migration, the causes which are related to the source region here. So source region is better than the destination region. So people see that there are greater opportunities in the source region. You have to understand that these opportunities, both the cases may, it is the opportunities which are there in the source region which people look into. These opportunities can be actual or they can be just perceived opportunities. People might feel that there is better opportunities there. Many of the people who are coming to Delhi, you see their situation, they are living in more worse situation than in their native village. So many times the opportunities are actually just perceived opportunities. Whatever be the cause, these opportunities would do what? They would attract people towards the destination. So owing to the real or perceived opportunities, and in this case mostly the higher classes of migrants are involved. Generally हम देखेंगे. The opportunities may be economic, social, political, etc. Number of them. Urban societies are comparatively free and cosmopolitan, attracting the rural population, for example. Russia is providing incentives for skill-based pull migration. Lots of, we'll say, Central Asia is one of the area which is the source region for migration which is taking place into Russia. Same thing, Eastern Europe is one of the source region for the destination which is Western Europe. Okay? So again we'll find that these type of migrations are what? They are pull based migration. ऐसा नहीं है कि वो अपने यहाँ पे रह रहे थे अपने सोर्स रीजन में तो उनको कोई प्रॉब्लम थी, उनको खाना नहीं मिल रहा था या कुछ ऐसा कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. But they preferred to migrate because they had objective of achieving better living standard than they were currently having. ठीक है? So that is basically the case of pull based migration. Now, pull based causes can be destination region also, but here the main factor is not, people are not willing to go. If you give them choice, you take the case of मनरेगा. शायद मैंने बताया इसके बारे में, नहीं बताया. मनरेगा was implemented. As soon as the implementation comes, in 2 years time, World Bank comes up with a study which says that मनरेगा is a failure. अब वर्ल्ड बैंक के पास कोई काम नहीं है, इंडिया की एक स्कीम आती है, उसको 2 साल में वो उसको इवैल्यूएट करने लगता है और वो उसको कहता है सीधे तौर पर फेलियर. दिस टाइम वाज वेरी शॉर्ट टू असेस द सक्सेस ऑफ मनरेगा. व्हाई इट वाज सेइंग फेलियर? बिकॉज मनरेगा वाज एक्चुअली वेरी सक्सेसफुल. मनरेगा provided people jobs in their homes, near their houses, near their source region. Nobody is willing to leave their loved ones and go into newer areas. If provided the opportunity, he would always prefer to live in his native place. So मनरेगा देखेंगे, मनरेगा was actually a very successful situation, successful policy. You can see that मतलब उस समय का situation ये हो गया था. Many of my friends coming from these areas of Green Revolution Belt, Punjab, etc. They were like fed up. They were like कि they were big zamindars and all those people. And उनकी स्थिति ये हो गई थी कि they were not finding labor. One day my friend called कि यार बड़े परेशान हो गए, एक भी लेबर ही नहीं आता है. लेबर जो आ भी रहा है तो उनकी अपनी डिमांड्स हैं. वो सुबह ट्रेन जब रुकती है तो लेने जाते हैं, जो बिहार से ट्रेन आती है, तो जब वो ट्रेन से उतरते हैं तो अपनी पहले डिमांड्स रख देते हैं. देखो भाई टीवी चाहिए, मकान चाहिए, इतना सैलरी चाहिए, तब जाकर के काम करेंगे. इट यूज्ड टू बी लाइक दिस. यू कैन अंडरस्टैंड दैट अगर ये सिचुएशन इन एरियाज में थी तो व्हाट हैव बीन द सिचुएशन इन द इंडस्ट्री. For industry, the labor was becoming costlier. और इसीलिए हमारे प्रिय मोदी जी ने आते ही सबसे पहला काम क्या किया? मनरेगा को डाइल्यूट कर दिया. This year also you see what they have done with the allocations of मनरेगा, again reduced. So it is related with what? We are saying that push based on the basis of the choice that is available to the people. अट्रैक्शन का फैक्टर दोनों जगह है. better opportunities at the destination is at both the cases. Some person would not go from Bihar to Odisha. क्यों जाएगा? बहुत जगह पर वही प्रॉब्लम्स है. He would, however, go to Delhi. He would, however, go to Kolkata. He would, however, go to Mumbai. So better opportunities दोनों जगह हैं. But how we are classifying whether it is push based or pull based, it is based upon the choice which is available to the people. In the first case, push based, the choice is very limited. They can prefer to live in extreme poverty, extreme problems. So that is basically what, that is the only choice they have left. So here the situations are forcing people. अभी जो हमने involuntary की बात की, can I say involuntary is also a form of push based? It is also a form of push based migration. So it is basically what? It is that kind of situation. On the other hand, in the second case, pull based, people are willing to go just because they want to better their living standard. It is not their life and death matter. They can still survive well. Someone living in suppose Lucknow, like me, क्या जरूरत थी दिल्ली आने की? आ गए लेकिन. So again, why? Because I had a better, bigger dream for myself. I wanted to do something bigger. So I came here. So this is basically what? This is a pull-based migration which is there. Definitely. It is a kind of pull-based. देखो सिंपल सी बात यह है कि जब हम वर्ड्स को यूज कर रहे हैं पुल बेस्ड और पुश बेस्ड, तो ये दोनों चीजें क्या है? एक एक्सट्रीम पोल्स हैं. ठीक है. लाइफ में कोई भी चीज ब्लैक एंड व्हाइट नहीं होती. देयर इज ओनली शेड्स ऑफ ग्रे. ठीक है. सो हियर ऑल्सो पुल बेस्ड एंड पुश बेस्ड, पुल फैक्टर कहीं पर भी 100% नहीं होगा, पुश फैक्टर कहीं पर भी 100% नहीं होगा. ठीक है. जैसे अभी हमने बोला वॉर बेस्ड माइग्रेशन, सॉरी यहां पर पुट करो, वॉर बेस्ड माइग्रेशन वुड बी पुट समवेयर हियर. स्टिल लोगों के पास चॉइस है. अभी भी सीरिया में लोग वहां पे हैं. ठीक है. स्टिल देयर इज चॉइस. सो अगेन इट वुड नेवर बी 100%. जब हम पुश बेस्ड बोल रहे हैं तो उसमें भी कुछ कंपोनेंट पुल बेस्ड होगा. देयर इज अ पुल. व्हाई दे आर गोइंग टुवर्ड्स पर्टिकुलर लोकेशंस ओनली? देयर इज क्लियरली अ पुल फैक्टर आल्सो एट वर्क. जब हम पुश बेस्ड बोल रहे हैं, जब हम पुल बेस्ड बोल रहे हैं, देयर आल्सो सम पुश बेस्ड फैक्टर्स वुड बी एट वर्क. इफ ही इज फुल्ली हैप्पी, nobody would leave a place when he is fully happy. There must be certain conditions which would make him unhappy with what he has. ठीक है. So that is what you have to understand. These are relative words when we are using them. They are not absolute. Theories of migration की बात करते हैं. So one important theory, theories of migration हम क्यों पढ़ रहे हैं? Because we are studying one topic, causes of migration. ठीक है. अभी हमने दो causes देखे, push based, pull based. इसको better समझने के लिए there are other factors also we'll look into. These are the theories of migration. One of the earliest theory of migration was given by Ravenstein. Ravenstein's theory of migration. And you can see that he formulated the law of migration in as early as 1885, which is the first foundational theory on migration. Very important thing about Ravenstein idea, he gave several general principles of migration. And that is why we will find that all these general principles which were given by Ravenstein, they are still applicable today. He didn't formulate a particular type of model of migration. He just talked about certain things which were perceivable, which were seen to be happening. And those general things we find that they are still applicable today. वो आज भी होते हैं. Like for example, अभी देखते हैं. He says that as the distance increases, what will happen with the total amount of migration? It would reduce. Simple सी बात है. Distance decay. ठीक है. So many such type of laws has been given by Ravenstein. So सबसे पहले migration and distance. I think I have to change it. So if we talk about first one, that is migration and distance. This is the first law of Ravenstein. So migration is inversely proportional to the distance. In simple words, what we find? In simple words, this is the amount or magnitude of migration, and this is the distance. This is the source. So what happens as the distance increases, the amount of migrants would be decreasing. अभी हमने थोड़ी देर पहले भी बात किया था, 3 तरह के माइग्रेशन में से कौन सा सबसे ज्यादा था? शॉर्ट डिस्टेंस, मीडियम डिस्टेंस और लॉन्ग डिस्टेंस. It is short distance migration which is maximum. So large number of migrants move only short distances, mostly due to physical and economic factors, primarily towards the center of commerce and industry. इंडिया में देखेंगे, however, the primary cause is mainly social, that is marriage of women. ठीक है, where maximum number of migrants are the women migrants who are moving just short distances, just because of the factor of marriage. ठीक है, so that is basically the migration and distance factor. Simple है, migration would become lower if the distance increases. There are so many reasons for this. Basic reason is, although Ravenstein doesn't talk about this reason, but basic reason is that with increasing distance, there is number of factors which would change. One, your connectivity with the loved ones would be farther. Nobody wants that. Other factors like the economic cost, etc. would also be what? It would be increasing. So several factors would make sure that with distance it is inversely proportional. Second important is migration occurs in stages. So there is what? There is a stepped migration process. It happens because of information available is more for a city than it is just above the nearest city. इसको मैं समझाता हूँ. Okay. If we are talking about these settlement systems, so suppose this is the highest order city which is present, like the metropolitan city. So here some investment was being done, and because of this investment there was rise of opportunity. ठीक है, इस अपॉर्चुनिटी के बारे में सबसे पहले किसे पता चलेगा? Can I say the nearest located places? So what will happen? People would migrate from the lower order, immediate lower order city here. Now, as this migration occurs, can I say opportunities would rise in this city? There would be a gap which would be created in this city. And again, from here, people will be aware that there are opportunities. So what will happen? Again, new gap arises here, and from the immediately lower order settlement, there would be migration to fill this gap. Again here, and from immediately lower order settlement, there would be migration to fill this gap. So in this manner, what we find, the migration becomes a stepped process. Normally, if it is a stepped process, we will see that it is good, it is more even, it is more equitable, it is better. इंडिया में देखेंगे प्रॉब्लम क्या है, रेवेंस्टीन का ये प्रिंसिपल फेल हो जाता है. Why? Because opportunities are only available in India at one place, the class 1 cities, mostly the metropolitan cities. Thus, majority of people migrate where? They are simply migrating towards these class 1 cities. As a result of which, the stepped migration process is bypassed. बाद में देखेंगे इसी प्रोसेस को हम बोलेंगे मेट्रोपोलाइजेशन. मेट्रोपोलाइजेशन, सो सभी गांव से भी लोग सीधे दिल्ली आ रहे हैं, छोटे शहरों से भी लोग सीधा दिल्ली आ रहे हैं, डायरेक्टली टू दिल्ली. ठीक है. सो दैट इज it occurs in stages. एक दूसरा, streams and counter streams of migration. So, a person migrating to a destination spread information about his source area in the destination region. Thus, many people start following the counter migration route. Like for example, see, suppose there were people who ultimately moved from India towards USA. India towards USA. So what will happen? Suppose एक बंदा गया इधर, and can I say he would still be connected with his family, with his friends? So will he pass on the information about what is the condition in US? Will he tell them that there are better opportunities, यहाँ पर आ जाओ? उसको भी बेचारे को अकेला अच्छा नहीं लग रहा होगा. So he would keep on passing these opportunities for the people to ultimately come from India to US. So can I say, over a period of time, it would become a stream of migration. ठीक है, स्ट्रीम ऑफ माइग्रेशन. अब इसमें से जो लोग गए थे यहाँ पर, इंडियंस की खास बात ही होती है कि फालतू की बातें करने में टॉप. सो जो यहाँ से लोग गए थे, उन्होंने बताया कि नहीं नहीं, हमारा कल्चर जो है, इट इज द मोस्ट सुपीरियर कल्चर. यू डोंट नो, हमारे यहाँ योगा होता है, ऐसा होता है, वैसा होता है. देयर वुड बी नंबर ऑफ people who would be affected by this new culture. Many of them would feel, okay, there is this spiritualism. India's spiritualism is very, very famous. Some of them would have went there. Like for example, take the case of Iyengar. He was a very, very popular yoga teacher and established several schools in US. Now, can I say this would have affected many people? And as a result, there would also be some people who would now go back to the source region from the destination. So when there is a stream of migration, it would always be followed by a counter stream of migration. ठीक है? There would always be a counter stream of migration which would be created. बट इन दोनों लाइनों में जो डिफरेंस है, कैन आई से इट वुड ऑल्सो बी द डिफरेंस इन द काउंटर एंड stream and counter stream of migration? The stream of migration would always be thicker, larger. Counter stream would, in majority of cases, the counter stream would be what? It would be weak. It would be weak. So in India, so many people are coming from the West in search of spiritualism. You might have seen. ठीक है, फिर आते हैं बेचारे वो बाबा लोगों के चंगुल में फंस जाते हैं. एंड इंडिया के बाबा लोग यू नो वेरी वेल बहुत शाणे हैं. So again, that is basically the stream and counter streams of migration. Then there is rural-urban differential in migration. The population of rural areas have more propensities to migrate as compared to the urban population. Reason is very simple, because rural areas is characterized by more problems compared to the urban areas. People living in urban areas, why they need to move? They would be just, nobody would want to go back. Very few people would want to go back. So they would be just going where? To new urban areas. And thus they would think, why leave this place? It is already good. Okay? So in case of urban areas, इसको मैं दूसरे terms में, technical terms में समझाने की कोशिश करूं, तो can I say in case of the urban areas, the only major force of migration is the pull-based migration, which is at work. Push-based migration is weak. But in rural areas, can I say it is both pull-based and push-based at work? Push-based is very strong, but there is also the factor of pull. So, rural-urban differential in the migration exists. There is greater amount of migration occurs from rural areas because of the inherent problems that they have. It is, the overpopulation is greater in the rural areas compared to the cities. We are not talking here about the density of population. We are talking about overpopulation. हमने देखा है overpopulation को कैसे measure कर सकते हैं? Per capita income. ठीक है? So again, that is a scenario. Then preponderance of women in short distance migration. Ravenstein भी इस बात को कहता है. Reason is very simple, that in almost all the societies we know, major societies of the world, can I say they are patriarchal? They are essentially patriarchal societies where the women after the marriage, the females after the marriage, they would have to leave their father's household and have to move to the husband household. So when it comes to the short distance migration, the primary cause is the social factor, that is the marriage. And in this marriage, mostly the moving people are the females, women. ठीक है, कुछ मेल भी होते हैं घर जमाए, but कम होते हैं. So that is why there is preponderance of women in short distance migration. There is clear-cut relationship between technology and migration. देखो तुम लोगों ने, अभी मैंने एक बात बोली कि कुछ मेल भी होते हैं, तुम लोगों ने कितनी तेज से हंसा. तुम लोगों का माइंड सेट देखो कैसा मेल ओरिएंटेड, स्टीरियोटाइप्ड है. ओके, यू शुड नॉट लाफ. एवरीवन should be free. He decides what is good for him or her. Okay. There is clear-cut relationship between technology and migration. So, very clearly, if there is betterment of technology, it would give rise to more migration. Take the example of North and South India, for example. So, earlier, if you had to go from North to South or come from South to North, 3 दिन लगते थे ट्रेन से. त्रिवेंद्रम जाने के लिए एटलीस्ट 3 days, प्रॉपर 3 दिन. अब ऐसे में सपोज somebody gets an opportunity to work in Trivandrum, can I say he would be unwilling? सपोज घर में कोई ट्रेजेडी हो जाए तो 3 दिन तक आ नहीं सकता है वो. ठीक है. What has happened now? The technology has allowed that you can travel there in just a matter of 3 to 4 hours. you can come back in just a matter of 3 to 4 hours. ठीक है, कभी कभी मुझे गुड़गांव जाने में इतना टाइम लग जाता है दिल्ली से. So again you can understand that the technology, because of the development of technology, can I say more people would be now willing to go and work in south, or from south come to in north and work? More number of people. You see the case of, for example, बाद में भी देखते हैं that in recent times the number of females in the long distance and medium distance migration has increased. It used to be very low. ठीक है, अब तुम ही लोगों को देखो, गर्ल्स who are sitting here, घर वाले स्काइप या व्हाट्सएप पे वीडियो कॉल करके पता जरूर करते होंगे कि कहाँ पे हो. ठीक है, अर्लियर इट वॉज डिफरेंट. अर्लियर they could not do so, they were not sending, they preferred not to send. But now there is technological development through which they can take care of you. And as a result of which, we can see that the nature of migration has changed. So there is a very clear-cut relationship between technology and migration. We will see that in India, the migration mobility began to increase as Britishers built the railways. Before, when there was traditional mode of transportation, the migration in India was at very low level. As the Britishers continued to build the railways, we find that the Indian population became more mobile. Okay? So we will see. Motives of migration. There are several motives of migration, like according to Ravenstein, economic motives have the primary importance among the factors governing the magnitude of migration. Majority of people who have migrated, they have migrated because of the economic motives, if we look into the history. Like for example, we'll see one of the biggest migration streams which have been there. It has been, in modern times we are talking about, this migration has been for economic factors. This has been from Europe to the New World, where people went and settled in Americas, Australia, New Zealand. And we find that of that time, 1/3 of the population of Europe was involved in this migration. Okay? So again, if we look into what was the main cause of this migration, why they left Europe? Because Europe was experiencing the second stage of demographic transition, a situation of overpopulation, lack of employment, poverty, and they felt that if there are better opportunities available elsewhere, we'll go and live there. So it was the economic factors which was the main reason. So there are several motives of migration. Most important motive historically, if we look into why majority of people have migrated, it has been what? It has been economic motive. If I go before that, again we will be finding economic motives. Okay? So that is basically the laws. Usko short mein niche likha hua hai, bas, nothing else. The things which we talked about. So that is one important case of migration. Then a number of theories were given later on about this migration studies. And one very important theory which was given was the gravity theory of Rayleigh. It is actually REI होना चाहिए यहाँ पर, RA नहीं है, REILLY, Rayleigh. And Rayleigh propounded this gravity theory in 1909. हमने देखा था social physics school. Social physics school actually had started much before. It started in geography. It was demographic studies, sociological studies where it had first started. And one of the pioneers in this study was Rayleigh. So Rayleigh simply did what? He applied the Newtonian concept of gravity to provide the magnitude of migration. ठीक है? So gravity model क्या होता है? It is based upon Newton's idea, Newton's theory. Big things attract each other more than do small objects, and the things close to each other have stronger mutual attraction than to objects at greater distances. So attraction decreases rapidly, very rapidly, with even small increase in separation. That is, as the distance increases, what will happen? The attraction power would be increasing. So this formula is there where migration index is equal to K population 1 population 2 upon distance square. So you must be aware, Newton's theory of gravity simply says that the attraction is directly proportional to the product of the masses, and it is inversely proportional to the square of distance. So same, he just simply applied the gravitational model to understand the migration index, or how much of the time of migration would be taking place. So K here is the proportionality constant, which is taken to ultimately understand the factors which would be determinative. Like एक factor होगा availability of transportation. ठीक है? So to determine such factors, the K is taken as the proportionality constant. P1, P2 is the population of source and destination regions, and D is essentially what? It is the distance. ठीक है? So again, through that he tried to calculate what is the attraction. Suppose ये मान लेते हैं A है, ये मान लेते हैं B है. So कितने लोग A से B की ओर जाएंगे and कितने लोग B से A की ओर जाएंगे. ठीक है? Through that he tried to ultimately calculate. Now if we evaluate, number of problems in this model are found. One of the problem is he is treating space simply in terms of distance, and he fails to take into account number of factors, like for example functionality factor. Like for example, okay, maybe size of population of A is large, but can I say that हो सकता है that it doesn't has too many jobs? Functionality in A is lower. So can I say, if this is the case, will people would be willing to go to A? Like for example, you take the case of Kolkata. In recent times, Kolkata is the third largest city of India. In recent times, what we find, Kolkata is unable to attract lots of migrants from Bihar. ठीक है? Why it is unable to attract lots of migrants from Bihar? क्योंकि वहां पर जो pseudo communist बैठे हुए हैं, उन्होंने they didn't allow the proper development to take place. ठीक है? जैसे I always say this, Nathuram Godse killed Gandhi once, but जो so called Gandhians हैं, they are killing Gandhi every day, every moment. Same thing is with the communists in India. If you leave some of them like Kerala model or some of the models, you'll be finding West Bengal model is the most pathetic communist model which has been there. And it was based upon the Soviet model. Soviet model was, to be very clear, it was not a Marxist model. Marx क्या बातें करता है और Soviet क्या करता था, it was total difference. A similar kind of thing also existed in West Bengal. So what has happened, they actually took the state more backward. There was so much opportunities, there was so much already inertia of development, because it was one of the oldest industrial region of India. Jute textile, याद है हमने बात किया था, that jute textile was developed during the British period. And what has happened, they could not keep pace with the things which are there. You see the case of Kerala. Kerala has been able to attract investment despite being a communist regime. So that happened in case of Kolkata. Kolkata की population high है, but आज के time में there is more migration taking place towards Delhi, towards Mumbai, towards Ahmedabad. ठीक है? Why? Because there are more opportunities available in these cities compared to Kolkata. Functionality, if you look into, is lower today in Kolkata. Okay? So again, that is what we are talking about. Here space is just treated in terms of distance and place. Location, sorry. Distance and location, which is not the case. There are number of factors which would be determining. Like for example, you take the case of transportation route. If there is regular flights available, more regular flights available, can I say it is very clear, or train route available, fast train routes available, there would be more migration. Distance would be what? It would be lesser. So, like for example, some of the areas in my village, मेरे village से they are just hardly 15-20 kilometers far away. And my grandfather and friends, they used to tell कि when they had to suppose go in a marriage, वो एक गांव है उनका, उस गांव में जब जाना होता था, तो अगर कल शादी है तो आज रात में पैदल जाते थे, पैदल निकलेंगे तो कल जाकर के सुबह या दोपहर तक पहुंचेंगे. रात में ही निकलना होता था because day time sun and too much hot. So again, this much of time was required. Now, when the roads are there, you have your vehicles, even a train route is also there. You can reach there in just half an hour. As a result, what is happening? So many people are migrating every day. Okay? So distance, if you talk about, it is not just absolute thing. Distance is also present in, it has different characteristics, the functionality, the nature of the space. Several factors determine that what would be the case of distance. Other factors bhi hote hain, like diffusion of information. This is also one of the factors. Like you take the case of Middle East. We will see that in case of Kerala, Kerala has been the major source of migrants for the Middle East. And you know very well, Muslim population is the most important population which migrates to the Middle East because of the cultural similarity, because of the religion similarity. They find it easier to cope in the situation. Can I say that Muslim population is not only living in India, in Kerala? इंडिया में बहुत सारी जगह पर मुस्लिम पॉपुलेशन है. दिल्ली के अराउंड इतना ज़्यादा है, बिहार, यूपी, कर्नाटका, आंध्र प्रदेश, तमिलनाडु, सभी जगह पर है. But why the migration was taking place mainly from Kerala? Distance बहुत ज़्यादा फर्क नहीं है. Primary reason was the information flow. In these areas, people were not informed about the opportunities which existed in the Middle East. Once they got information, they reached the information age. As soon as the information age has come in India, we find that now there are competing migrants coming from Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka. Okay? So again, we'll find that it is also the function of factors like information. Okay? Social conditions, socio-economic conditions, other factors also are there. Like for example, you take the case of India. Before the British arrived, it had very, very limited migration. Why very limited migration? One of the factors was the religious factor. So you know, if an Indian Hindu was going out far away, again his religion was not permitting it, brushed ho jayega wo. That was the kind of belief system which was there. But as the society developed, as the social changes occurred, there was comparatively greater secularization. Can I say now people have no problem Migration has become greater, particularly the international migration has specifically increased. So the social factors, social conditions also determine. Like for example, if a society is a traditional society, can I say in traditional society the families would be mostly joint families? So एक यंग बंदा फैमिली का है, वो सोचता है यार चलो शहर में जाकर के कुछ करते हैं, यहाँ कहाँ पे पड़े मैं, बट घर में बुढ़े नहीं, नहीं जाना है, यहीं रहोगे. He cannot take his decision. But now when there is change in the society, when there is more development of nuclear societies, in such nuclear societies, like for example, the generation gap between me and my father would be less. But if you take the generation gap between me and my grandfather, it would be far too much. So it would be easier for me to convince my father rather than my grandfather. Okay? So again, the nature of society would also ultimately determine the nature of migration. Like अभी मैंने women migration की बात की, female migration. What we are seeing that it has changed because the social ethics are changing. Now we see female also as on equal terms. And as a result of which the migration trend is changing. So social conditions are also very important factors. Political conditions, यहाँ पर etc लिखा हुआ है, इसका मतलब और भी factors हो सकते हैं. Political conditions, like for example, in India historically the migration was smaller. Can I say one of the reasons was that India was non-unified, there was no India. There were simply what? Princely states. And these princely states had their own political boundaries. It was not easy to cross those political boundaries. Once India became united under the British, we find that the magnitude of migration began to increase. So the space which it is taking into, it is not taking into the holistic lot of factors. Even what it is taking into, it is very crude application of the gravity model. Very, very crude application. So he was criticized by Harris for neglecting the role of social consideration. According to Peterson, he neglected the factor of age and sex profile of the migrants. So number of things he is not talking about. Then later on there was one theory which was given by J.K. Ziff, and it was principle of least effort in 1940. So here migration is Mij is equal to K, again constant, Pi Pj upon D. So अब D square हटा के D कर दिया. So where Mij is the magnitude of migration between I and J. Migration of people and good is based on this principle. Inter-community movement is such that so as to minimize the total work of the system. Mij is simply the function of distance. Greater distances require more efforts. And thus what will happen? Greater the distance, lesser would be the magnitude of migration. He is also just simply using the migration formula, the gravitational formula, and here he is simply trying to just explain it using a different perspective. He simply treated geographical space as simple function of distance. According to Impulse, Ziff model is just another version of gravity model and has the same limitations. उसमें कोई भी फर्क नहीं है. He just changed the formula. It is same. हाँ. नहीं, population के लिए तो we are taking other thing ना. This constant is to take into account the other variable factors. ये population के लिए P is the population. This constant जो हम ले रहे हैं, constant बहुत सारे factors हो सकते हैं, which can be like you take the case of the transportation mode. ठीक है? तो उसके लिए basically we are using this term constant. नहीं, वो सब इंक्लूड नहीं किया जाता, ग्रेविटी मॉडल का ये लिमिटेशन था. ओके, so number of gravity models, what we are trying to say is number of gravity models were given. अभी one few more gravity models will be later doing when we'll study sphere of influence. ठीक है, urban sphere of influence जब करेंगे तो we'll look into some other gravity models which were there, like Conversa put forward, other the breaking point theory, several other were put. Like for example, we will see that here they are talking about this formula, but better should have been you take A and B. Suppose A and B, and suppose here I take one X village. So I have to look into now from X how many people would be going towards A and how many people would be going towards B. Okay? On the basis of that, what I can do, I can create some breaking points of A, breaking points between A and B, which would determine the sphere of influence of A and sphere of influence of B. Okay? And on the basis of that, what we can do, we can determine what is the total area where the influence of A would be more than that of B. Okay? So again, we will see, इसको बाद में उसमें देखेंगे sphere of influence में, that is also the type of gravity model. But in all these models, the main problem was what? The main problem was the neglect of several other variables. Distance is not absolute, distance is very subjective term. Like for example, it has been suggested that rather than distance, it should have been travel time is a better criteria than distance. और travel time भी कुछ भी नहीं है. I have told you before, I have given you example before. If you tell me कि यहाँ से वहाँ जाना है सर, और मेरा मूड नहीं है, कुछ भी कर लो, I am very rigid. But when I am in mood, you just एक बार मुझे push करो, I'll take up my car and I'll go anywhere. Motive is there. So many behavioral factors. What I'm talking about is the factor of behavior. Some people have greater propensity to take risk. Others have lesser propensity to take the risks. So several factors have been neglected by this gravity model. Another variation of gravity model was given by Stouffer, S.S. Stouffer, and he gave a very good model of intervening opportunities. He saw that the distance which we are talking about, it is not a monotonous distance. The space, the geographical space is not monotonous, it is not isotrophic. This space has several other opportunities, intervening opportunities. जैसे अभी मैंने example दिया था, person coming from Bihar, first Patna, Allahabad and then Delhi. Why? Because there are intervening opportunities in between. Okay? So the total amount of migration which would be taking place from Bihar to Delhi, it would be determined by the intervening opportunities which are present in Patna and Allahabad. It would not be simply function of the population. अभी तक के gravity models में क्या किया जा रहा है? The population size of the source and population size of the destination is taken, and the distance between them is taken as the way to determine the magnitude of migration which would be taking place between the source and destination. But it is not simple function because the space is more varied. Within this intervening space there can be intervening opportunities. Okay? So that is the model which has been put by Stouffer. So trying to improve upon the idea of Ziff, S.S. Stouffer put forward the model of intervening opportunities. The intervening opportunities between the source and destination change the magnitude of migration. According to him, linear distance was less important determinant than the nature of space. Thus, the distance should be considered in socio-economic terms rather than geometric terms. Thus, the magnitude of migration is directly proportional to the number of opportunities at the destination and inversely proportional to the number of intervening opportunities. Okay? So he gives a formula where y is equal to k is again constant, x asterisk upon x, where y is the expected migrants at the destination. X asterisk is the number of opportunities at the rate destination. X is equal to the number of intervening opportunities between the origin and the destination. Okay? So he is basically looking into what? He is looking into also the nature of space rather than space taking simply in absolute terms. Okay? So in India में हमने देखा है metropolization process हो रहा है. Why? Because intervening opportunities are missing. Can I say with our smart city project, what we are trying to do? Can I say we are trying to create these intervening opportunities? There are many schemes of Government of India which are trying to create these intervening opportunities. Like for example, the smart city project, which is trying to create a network of secondary cities against the primary centers. Below that, we are trying to create the others. SEZ is a different thing. It is an industrialization concept. Here we are talking about the urbanization process. ठीक है, SEZ से हम अपॉर्चुनिटीज क्रिएट कर रहे हैं, इंडस्ट्रियल अपॉर्चुनिटीज क्रिएट कर रहे हैं. जब हम माइग्रेशन की बात कर रहे हैं तो SEZ कंसेप्ट नहीं यूज करेंगे. व्हाट आई एम जस्ट ट्राइंग टू से. ठीक है. So here if you talk about, when I am talking about the migration, when I am talking about urbanization, what would be the concepts I will be using? I will be using smart city project. So through the smart city project, what we are trying to do? We are trying to create these opportunities. Or suppose you take the case of Shyama Prasad Mukherjee Rural Urban Mission. So through that what we are doing? We are creating clusters of villages, and in these clusters of villages we are promoting some kind of manufacturing. ठीक है. Cottage industries, small scale industries, we are trying to promote them. So through that ultimately what we are trying to do? We are trying to create intervening opportunities. Or you take the case of Manrega. If Manrega is providing employment in the village itself, can I say we are trying to ensure that there are intervening opportunities? So people will not be migrating directly to these places. So we are trying to correct the hierarchy of urbanization in India. We are trying to re-ensure that the stepped migration process occurs. How we are trying to ensure? Through these schemes. ठीक है. So evaluation अगर इस मॉडल का करें, it has clearly improved upon the ZIFS model of least effort by including the economic factors, that is the opportunities. You can understand, हम opportunities को measure कर सकते हैं. Like किसी city में कितनी factories हैं, किसी city में कितने retail outlets हैं, और the wholesale manufacturing जो हो रहा है, wholesale trading जो हो रहा है, we can actually look into the number of factories. It can be counted. A district GDP is one of the ways in which it can be counted. Many economic variables you can use to ultimately count the amount of opportunities which are available in an area. Okay? So that is basically the case of this model of Stouffer. But Stouffer was not satisfied, and Stouffer later on he came up with a new model, as he found that there are other factors also which are determining the amount of migration which is taking place. So he came up with the model of competing migrants. So migration is not only function of opportunities but also function of competing migrants from other source areas, source regions or source areas. Example, Indian and Chinese both are trying to go into US. ठीक है. सभी जो इंजीनियर्स होते हैं, स्पेशली इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स, आईटी इंजीनियर्स, उनका एक सपना होता है ऑन साइट जॉब करने का. But not all of them are getting the opportunity. Why? Because the amount of visa offered, it is limited. even in that the amount of visa which is offered, it would be distributed among the people coming from other countries. So there is competition which is taking place between the migrants. So if I look into total amount of migration which would be taking place between India and US, can I say it would be function of number of factors? Like for example, suppose someone is going to try to go from India to USA. Can I say one factor would be that the intervening opportunity like Middle East, हो सकता है वहाँ पर भी jobs हैं. So some would prefer to go there and only some of them would be, rest of them would be going to US. Also this amount of people going from India to US, it is not just function of intervening opportunities, it is also competition from others who are coming here, competing migrants. Okay? So Stouffer found out that other factor is also there. So thus he gives this formula where y is equal to k x0, x1, xb, xc upon xb, xc. So where y is the number of migrants between city 1 and 2. So there is these two cities 1 and 2. So the total number of migrants which are going from 1 and 2. x0 क्या है? It is the number of out migrants from city 1. अब पता नहीं स्टूफर ने ऐसा 0 क्यों यूज किया, 1 यूज कर लेता. ठीक है. So out migrants which are going from city 1. Then x1 is the number of opportunities at city 2. Total number of opportunities at city 2. So multiply x0 into x1 upon xb is the number of intervening opportunities. अभी हमने देखा था, it is inversely proportional. So if there is here C, so this would also attract some of the migrants. So the total number of migrants going to 2 would become lesser. And xc is the number of migrants potentially competing for the opportunities in city 2. So other migrants which are coming from other places. So that is also one of the factors which determine. So Stouffer very clearly sees that the nature of space is what? It is not just absolute distance. It cannot be simply measured in terms of distance. Geometric. It is not just geometric. Space has several components. One of the components taken by Stouffer is the socio-economic component, which is taken by mostly the economic component of the space. So his model is based primarily on economic factors. This is a spatial model. It is essentially what? It is a spatial model, locational model. So it is neglecting the normative values. Okay? It is clearly affected by positivism and takes into account mostly what? Objective space, which can be measured. He is just taking into account those variables which are measurable variables. But there are several variables which cannot be measured. And there are problems in understanding of those variables. But if there are problems in measurement, it does not mean that those variables are not at work. Like एक variable information flow. ठीक है? So by neglecting the subjective space, he neglects the subjective space. One of the behavioral model was given by Hegerstrand. And Hegerstrand talks about information fields. People are surrounded by information fields, which determines their need to migrate and where to migrate. Information fields have been accumulated over a period of time and it reflects the behavior of individual. He has presented a simplified model of residential mobility where population is distributed in discrete locations. So suppose this is the area, population is concentrated into these nodes, discrete locations called nodes. These nodes are connected to each other such that there is perfect mobility in terms of population and goods. population and goods. So he is basically taking this area, he neglects other variables. Perfect mobility is there. That means all of them are connected with same type of transportation route which is very very efficient. He neglects that हो सकता है कि इन दोनों के बीच में रोड उतना डेवलप ना हो या ट्रेन डेवलप ना हो. He is saying that all of these are interconnected to each other so that there is perfect mobility. Each individual has his own personal information field surrounding him. Migration distances are taken in probabilistic manner using this personal information field. The personal information field is highly variable, where learning and relearning continues to take place in space and time. Despite this variability, a mean information field can be calculated, which would be function of the social values of the community. Such a mean value can be used to determine the frequency of contacts between these nodes. So he is trying to study the behavior of the people, know about what people have information. Like for example, अभी मैंने example दिया था बिहार and Kolkata. If you go back to the decades of 80, till the decades of 80, we find that majority of migrants from Bihar used to go towards Kolkata. It was the main center, main destination. But कुछ तो हुआ होगा कि उस society का mean information field change हो गया, because there was learning and relearning. Several people who would have went there, they would have found कि jobs ही नहीं है. They would have relearned that it is misconception, it is only perceived opportunities which are present in Kolkata. So they would come back and pass on this information to the native, to the source people, and slowly this information field would become. So today what is we are finding that people are now aware that Kolkata is stagnant. It has stagnant economy. Thus majority of migration is occurring towards Delhi, which is the most powerful stream of all India, from Bihar to Delhi. And another important stream is from Bihar to Mumbai. Okay? So other places are now preferred despite the fact that they are far away. Kolkata is more near. It is despite the fact that they are farther away. So one perspective can be, देखो अब इसमें हमने बोला कि अगर मैं 80s के मॉडल को देखूं, यहाँ पर it was Delhi and here it was Kolkata. So from Bihar, people used to prefer more to migrate to Kolkata, and there was limited migration. There was migration taking place towards Delhi also, but this was the migration which was taking place towards Delhi. Can you see? मैंने यहाँ पर दोनों को बराबर बनाया. ये दोनों डॉट्स दिल्ली और कोलकाता के एक साइज के बनाने की कोशिश की. What has happened after 1991? The situation has changed. Now Delhi is like this. So mass of Delhi क्या हो गया? बढ़ गया. And Kolkata has been stagnant. So it is small now. So people who are living here in Bihar, for them, better opportunities are available at Delhi. So migration towards Kolkata has what? It has declined. अब ये gravity point of view से I am just trying to study. But can I say this gravity model is unable to reveal other factors which are determining? And other factor was the information field which was present at Bihar. What people think, what is their behavior? ठीक है? What is the value system? All these are also very important variables which determine the migration. So there is no doubt that gravity model, यहाँ पर भी gravity model fail नहीं हो रहा है, क्योंकि gravity model में mass It is directly proportional and inversely proportional to distance. So Delhi की तरफ क्यों ज़्यादा हो रहा है? Because mass बढ़ गया है Delhi का. Here we are measuring mass in terms of the total employment opportunities which are there. ठीक है? So it is not failing actually. The thing is that it is incomplete description of the reality. ठीक है? So that is basically the case of the Hagerstand model. So it is basically what it is very complex as mean information field is average of all personal information field, which is difficult to understand and calculate. So again, like all the behavioral theories, it is one of the difficult thing. Then another model was presented by Lee. Like Ravenstein, Lee has presented several general ideas, but Lee has also given one model. And if I talk about this model is the model of intervening obstacles. Intervening obstacles. So he simply says that migration is not just result of opportunities and the characteristics of source and destination, but also result of intervening obstacles as perceived by the individuals. So what I'm simply trying to say, when you are talking about source, we are talking about destination. It is not just function of opportunities here and there. It is also function of what? Intervening obstacles. Also function of the intervening obstacles. Okay? So that is basically what he is trying to say. You can understand that ye obstacles, so many types of obstacles can be there. Like obstacles destination में हो सकते हैं, obstacles source में हो सकते हैं. Several type of obstacles can be found. Like type of obstacles vary from person to person, vary with lifestyle, socio-economic, personality characteristics. People have perceived knowledge about the characteristic of destination depending upon perceived advantages, with intervening obstacles in realizing those advantages. Okay? So there are several intervening obstacles which are there. For example, suppose today I see that China is growing very, very fast. Lots of opportunities are there in case of China. Trading opportunities, so many types of opportunities. बहुत सारी चीजें यहाँ पर, जैसे एक छोटा सा एग्जांपल देता हूँ, सोलर पैनल्स इंडिया में मैन्युफैक्चर नहीं होते, ठीक है, होते हैं, बट इट इज जस्ट असेंबलिंग विच इज डन इन इंडिया. एंड स्मॉल द पैनल्स होते हैं, दे आर एक्चुअली जस्ट इंपोर्टेड फ्रॉम चाइना. Now, if you try to establish a solar panel here in India, it would be costly. If you go and buy the raw material from China and then you simply start a plant in India, it would be what? It would be cheaper. You will make lots of profit. ठीक है? एक अभी मेरे ख्याल से लास्ट ईयर एक न्यूज़ था. There are so many bikes, the cycles, which are lying as scrap in China. Simply as scrap. There are no buyers. इंडिया में क्या मैं कह सकता हूँ, धीरे धीरे ये ट्रेंड बढ़ रहा है. It would be increasing in future. We can think of increasing this kind of trend. So देखो, इतनी सारी बिजनेस अपॉर्चुनिटीज हैं, बट अगर मैं सोचता हूँ कि यार चाइना भाषा कैसे समझूंगा, मैंडरीन आई वोंट बी एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड. अभी रिसेंट में कोरोना वायरस आ गया, ठीक है. सो देयर वाज वन जोक आई वाज लुकिंग इनटू, दैट यू हैव वॉन अ प्राइज, फर्स्ट प्राइज, एंड योर फर्स्ट प्राइज इज अ टूरिस्ट पैकेज टू चाइना. So again, so what is there? There are several type of barriers, and these barriers would be what? These are obstacles. These can be simply perceived obstacles, because there are many people going to China. people must be speaking English. Indians को तो Mandarin आती नहीं है. One of my students is doing trading. He has opened a company in China. He's there. So many of these obstacles can be simply what? They can be perceived, but they are there in the mind of the individuals. Other obstacles हो सकते हैं, like social obstacles. Source region में बात करें तो, जैसे अभी हमने बात किया था, big family, the pressure from the family, these can also be the pressures which can be there. ठीक है, economic pressures हो सकते हैं, economic obstacles हो सकते हैं. Some person doesn't has even the money to ultimately migrate. अब पंजाब चले जाओ तो सभी कैनेडियन बनना चाहते हैं, बट बहुत सारे लोगों के पास इतना भी पैसा नहीं है कि इंटरमीडिएट्स को दे पाए जो लेकर के जाते हैं इलीगली. ठीक है, इट इज लाइक दिस. You must be knowing that now many people are selling their land also to go to Canada, and that too as illegal migrants. It is the situation. So there can be many such intervening obstacles. Like one of the obstacles अभी हमने बात किया था, visa, availability of visa. It is what? It is a institutional obstacle which is present. ठीक है, same thing, other type of obstacles. If you are going in Australia, there is chances कि if you become too much Indian, if you show too much of culture, पिट भी जाओगे. So that is also what? The intolerance there is what? At the destination is what? It is a social obstacle that is there. So many type of intervening obstacles can be present, and these are also the factor which should be taken into account, not just the factor of opportunities. Okay? So that is the basic idea of Lee. So he has tried to present a model. Lee is more motivated by the style of Ravenstein, who not gives any particular model, he is just giving some general laws. So similar type of general laws have also been propounded by Lee. And Lee propounds three type of principles or laws with respect to migration. First is with respect to the migration process. Some of the principles which are guiding the migration process. So one of the principle is volume of migration within a territory decreases with increasing diversity of people, culture. It decreases with the increasing diversity of people or culture. You take the case of India. India का हम अगर केस लें, so can I say India has had in the past more diversity with respect to culture, and as a result of this diversity, can I say there was less migration taking place, mobility was very low? There was nothing. Why? Because there is nothing to share. अगर पहले नॉर्थ से कोई साउथ में जाता था तो बात कैसे करेगा उससे? लैंग्वेज इज टोटली डिफरेंट, कल्चर इज वेरी वेरी डिफरेंट. वो बेचारे को रोटी चाहिए और वहां पर केवल चावल मिलेगा. सो कल्चर इज टोटली डिफरेंट. सो ग्रेटर द वेरिएबिलिटी ऑफ कल्चर, lesser would be the migration. Today what has happened? Can I say some similarity of culture has emerged? All of India is affected by westernization. English has emerged as a common language. Several cultural practices. पहले अगर नॉर्थ का आदमी साउथ में जाता था तो ड्रेसिंग सेंस देख करके भी it was totally different. Now सभी it is the western dressing sense which is adopted. Food you take, हर जगह चाइनीज मिल जाएगा. Everywhere you will be finding. So again what we find that greater the similarity in culture, greater would be the migration. Like अभी यहाँ पर एक example लिखा हुआ है. Majority of people who are migrating between Iberian Peninsula and South America, वो सबसे ज़्यादा Iberian Peninsula और South America सबसे ज़्यादा कहाँ पर जाते हैं? They are just going towards, or sorry, from South America they are mostly going where? Towards Iberian Peninsula, Spain and Portugal. Why? Because of the language similarity. Indians, they move where? To English speaking countries. ठीक है? Volume of migration is dependent upon the diversity in economy. Dependent upon the diversity in economy. So, अगर सपोज करो, अभी जैसे मैंने बात किया, रूरल है, दोनों ही अंडर डेवलप्ड रूरल है, दोनों ही जगह पर सबसिस्टेंस एग्रीकल्चर हो रहा है, ठीक है. सो यहां से जाकर के इधर क्या करेगा वो? यहां पे भी नंगे, वहां पर भी नंगे, ठीक है. बट इफ सपोज दिस इज एन अर्बन एरिया where there is industries located, can I say he will get different thing? He'll get wage employment, regular wage employment would be available here. So can I say if the economy becomes diverse, what will happen with the magnitude of migration? It would be increasing with the greater diversity of economy. So बाद में देखते हैं इंडिया में why historically the migration was lower, because everywhere in India subsistence agriculture being practiced, too much homogeneous economy. But with the advent of British, particularly after independence, as we embarked on the journey of industrialization, can I say our economy has now become more diverse? It has become more diverse, and with this diversity, what has happened? The magnitude of migration has increased. Okay? Almost today, the magnitude of migration in India is 1/3, even greater than that, okay, of the total population. So that is one factor. Then, volume of migration is related to the surmounting the intervening obstacles. So, abhi example jo diye the, like so many obstacles, how you are able to bypass, overcome these obstacles, like the visa regimes are obstacles, social obstacles like joint family system, several such factors would be determining. Others like semantic barriers, semantic means language barriers. Okay? So several, how you are able to overcome these limitations. Then volume of migration varies with fluctuation in economy. As economy is greater, what will happen? The migration will also be greater. Okay? Because there, if economy is greater, can I say there would be more opportunities which would come up? With greater opportunities, there would be greater attraction. There would be more migration taking place. Okay? So it is very frequently seen in the developed world that as there is phase of economic boom, there will be more opportunities and more people would migrate. As there is phase of low, what will happen? Less people would be migrating. छोटा सा example, demonetization हुआ, and with demonetization what happened? Many of the small scale manufacturing in India came to close. Okay, that was one of the impact of the demonetization. And what was seen because of that? So many people had to go back. Trains of people, it was like they had to go back to their native villages. Because jobs ही नहीं थी. ठीक है? उल्टा होना चाहिए था. It should have been more jobs created and more people coming, migrating. So it was reverse type of migration which was taking place. ठीक है? So it is very clearly the volume of migration is related with what? The volume of your economy. What is your economic condition? That is why we'll be finding that mobility becomes high in the developed societies. Unless severe checks are imposed, both the total volume and the rate of migration tend to increase with time, and it can be problematic in future. Already we see that it is the case of metropolization process in case of India. Not only India, in almost all developing countries, this is a phenomena. So you have to check this metropolization. अभी हमने बात किया, इसी को चेक करने के लिए हमने क्या किया है? We are trying to create counter magnet cities, and these counter magnet cities are part and parcel of the smart city project. ठीक है? हालांकि होता कुछ नहीं है, just they are adding every time. So new smart cities have been talked about, but मेरे सोचो कि एक टीचर के लिए क्या प्रॉब्लम है. I had to teach smart city, डाटा निकाल के देखा कि अभी उसमें क्या काम हुआ है, तो कुछ हुआ ही नहीं. So I was taking up actually one question on evaluate the progress of the smart city project. अब गवर्नमेंट के लिए नेगेटिव भी नहीं बोल सकते, particularly in written answers, and literally nothing has been done. It is like this. What has been done in name of smart city? The only thing that has been done is they are just removing the slums. ठीक है. बाद में देखेंगे एक फिनोमेना होता है gentrification. So the only thing which has actually happened is the phenomena of gentrification. Gentrification is a process whereby rich people encroach in the area of poor, in the zone of poor. So that is the only thing which has the progress which has been done in the name of the smart city. और इन slum dwellers को घर कहां पर दे रहे हैं? Outskirts. There is no job opportunities at the outskirts. वो वहां पर अपना घर किराए पर चढ़ा के फिर से आके एक नया स्लम बनाएगा. ठीक है. So again, they are not very futuristic in their thinking. In general, migration is higher in the developed economies, directly related with the economic progress. जो अभी हमने बात किया fluctuations. So that is the case of the process of migration. Then principles guiding the migration streams. So migration happens within well-defined streams, along well-defined routes, to certain specific destinations. ठीक है. Well defined streams होते हैं, like हम देखेंगे number of streams are there, like शायद इसमें like you see there are fixed streams from Mexico. If people are going into US, they are going into states like New Mexico. ठीक है. In the southern states. While from other Latin American countries, when people are moving into US, they are mostly going where? Towards Florida. So there are well-defined streams of migrations which are present. ठीक है. Because of why this stream of migration? Because of the idea of Heggerstand. अभी जो हमने थोड़ी देर पहले बोला था. That information field is very, very important. So one migrant, when it reaches, he would pass on the information that there is good opportunities or bad opportunities present there, and that would help in establishment of the streams. So if other people know, they would also prefer to go on the same route, on the same stream. Okay? So that is what it is written here about the migration stream. So there is well-defined stream and well-defined routes are there. With every migration stream, ये रेविंस्टीन ने भी इस पॉइंट को रखा था, there is a counter migration stream develops as population of destination become aware of the source region, opportunities at the source region. Push-based factors efficiency is more compelling than the pull-based factors efficiency in generating migration streams. He is just repeating the idea of Ravenstein. हमने देखा था, Ravenstein ने भी इस बात को बोला है. He said that rural people have greater propensity to migrate compared to the urban population. So he is indirectly saying the same thing in a different manner. That push-based factors generate more, they are more compelling in generating these streams of migration than the pull-based factors. Then nature of origin and source. If nature is similar, efficiency of streams and counter streams is low. ठीक है. Nature of origin and source. We are simply trying to say that, अगर मैं simple सा example दूं, if I take North America and if I take Europe, Western Europe, क्या ऐसे दोनों एक जैसे ही हैं? It is an example of, यहाँ से जो migration हो रहा है, it is an example of north-north migration. नॉर्थ नॉर्थ माइग्रेशन होगा। अब वेस्टर्न यूरोप से अपना घर छोड़ करके क्यों ऐसी जगह पर दूसरी जगह पर रहने के लिए कोई जाएगा? लेस पीपल वुड बी इंटरेस्टेड। बट इफ यू गिव अपॉर्चुनिटी टू इंडिया, China or other such places like Mexico, for them it is what? This destination is much more different, bigger. An opportunity to improve the standards of living. So can I say here the migration would be greater? सिमिलैरिटी की बात हो रही है यहाँ पर. इफ ओरिजिन एंड डेस्टिनेशन हैज सिमिलर कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स, then less people would be migrating. If the characteristics are different, then what will happen? Both streams and the counter streams would be what? Stronger compared to if there is similarity. कह सकते हो देयर इज सम. एक सिंपल सा एग्जांपल मैंने सामने रखा है, वो ज्यादा इफेक्टिव है मेरे हिसाब से. तो फालतू में चेन्नई और बेंगलोर को लाओ मत, क्योंकि उसके बारे में हमारे पास डाटा नहीं है. एनीथिंग विच यू से इट शुड बी सपोर्टेड बाय डाटा. हियर वी हैव अ इंफॉर्मेशन अवेलेबल दैट इट इज ट्रू. ठीक है, हम बाद में बात करते हैं पैटर्न की, तो वी विल सी that there is more number of migration taking place from East Asia or Asia towards Europe. ठीक है, so that is the basic case. We'll see. So again, that is one of the laws which has been propounded by Lee. Then he has several views on migrants also. Migration is always selective process, although it is not always. When it is involuntary, it is not necessary that it would be selective. If suppose people are forced through war to migrate, वो अपने साथ सबको ही लेके जाएगा, अपने पूरे परिवार को लेकर के जाएगा. So there would be old age people, children, women, men. But normally in case of voluntary migration, it is always what? Selective. As distance increases, we find that the males are those which are selected, majority of the cases. ठीक है, there would be dominance of male in the migration. Like अगर international migration की बात कर रहे हैं, long distance migration, can I say उसमें भी selection हो रहा है, and this selection can be, number of bases of selections can be there. अभी मैंने ऑस्ट्रेलिया के एग्जाम्पल दिया था, there the color of the skin, race was the basis of selection. ठीक है, today they have ultimately realized कि कोई यूरोपियन वाइट रेस क्यों जाकर के रेगिस्तान में रहना चाहेगा, डेजर्ट में. व्हाई ही वांट टू लिव इन ऑस्ट्रेलिया इतनी दूर? व्हाई पीपल विल बी गोइंग फ्रॉम यूरोप एंड नॉर्थ अमेरिका टुवर्ड्स ऑस्ट्रेलिया? सो दे अल्टीमेटली रियलाइज कि अब दूसरों को बुलाना पड़ेगा. सो अल्टीमेटली दे इनवाइटेड द एशियंस to in-migrate in their country. After 1990s, they relaxed their migration policy, but still it is selective. Selective in the sense that it is mostly the skilled migrants which are allowed, rather than the unskilled and semi-skilled. It is more in favor of the skilled migrants. So migration in majority of the cases is what? It is a selective process. ठीक है. So why it is a selective process? Because there are several obstacles. Like several obstacles can be there. Positive obstacles, higher class migrants, they are skilled. Negative for the lower class migrants which are unskilled. ठीक है. So suppose you know English. Can I say you will be able to adjust in majority of societies? If you migrate, English is a global language today. So if I know English, I would be able to survive majority of the societies I go. But a person who doesn't knows English, he would be finding it very, very difficult to adjust in newer areas. Okay? So again, various forms of such type of situations can be there. You take the case of तुम्हारे Malia, Mehul Bhai. These people are rich people. And rich living style everywhere in the world is similar. So when rich people are migrating to other areas, they would find it like home, anywhere they go in the world. So for them it will not be very, very difficult. They have least amount of obstacles. They can cross any of these obstacles even if they are there with the amount of resources they have. If a poor person, however, migrates, it would be very, very difficult for him or her. So that is what is why the migration process is always a selective process. Not everybody is able to cross the obstacles to migration, intervening obstacles. In case of the pull factor based migration or pull based migration, there is dominance of positive migrants. हमने already देखा है. Pull factor based at destination are more important. But in the case of push based, factor based migration, both the negative migrants and positive migrants would equally participate in the migration. If we take all type of migrants, push factor migration dominates over the pull factor migration. Pull factor migration. Moreover, the degree of positive selection increases with increasing difficulty in overcoming the intervening obstacles. More number of obstacles, there would be more number of positive selections. ठीक है. सो अभी मैंने ऑस्ट्रेलिया का एग्जांपल दिया. ऑस्ट्रेलिया ने बहुत सारे ऑब्स्टिकल्स लगा रखे हैं. सो कैन आई से द पॉजिटिव सिलेक्शंस आर मोर. लाइक यूएस इज गिविंग द वीजास टू इंडियंस. कैन आई से स्पेसिफिक इंडियंस कैन ओनली मूव टू यूएस. ठीक है. सो दैट इज हाउ इट बिकम्स फुली सिलेक्टिव. इंटरवीनिंग अपॉर्चुनिटीज नहीं होना चाहिए, ऑब्स्टिकल्स यहां पर होना चाहिए. इंटरवीनिंग ऑब्स्टिकल्स वीड आउट वीक एंड लो क्लास माइग्रेंट्स. Weed out weak and low class migrant. Propensity to migrate is high at certain ages. ठीक है. It is very clearly high at certain ages. That is, migration is age specific phenomena. You know, it is the young age when you have greater propensity to migrate. Once you reach the age of 30s, 40s, your propensity to migration goes down. ठीक है. बाहर भी हैं. If you suppose have migrated to other countries, 40s में पहुंचते ही वो गाना सुने लोगे, चिट्ठी आई है, चिट्ठी आई है. The culture will call you. So it is basically what? It is a age specific phenomena, and mostly it is the younger population which is involved. Migrants and the people at the destination would share common socio-cultural aspects, and it largely determines the migration streams into certain destination. So majority of the migrants would prefer to go to those areas where there is similarity of culture. If the similarity of culture is not there, there is some common trait is not present, then they would hardly prefer to go in such areas, destinations. ठीक है. So for example, mostly Muslims from South Asia migrate to Middle East. Why? Because of the same religion of Islam. It is the Islamic realm, Islamic cultural habits. Western, that is English educated Indians move to West, mostly US, Britain, Canada, because the language becomes same. अभी मैंने example दिया था Latin America से Iberian Peninsula. It is another example why they are moving towards Spain and Portugal. Brazil speaks Portuguese. Rest of Latin America speaks Spanish. ठीक है. So again, that is the reason why the majority of migration occurs from the Latin America to Iberian Peninsula. So you can understand why majority of Brazilians and South Americans, Argentinians, etc., they come and play in Spanish league. They do not prefer to go in English leagues or other. Although English league में पैसा ज़्यादा है, but still because their culture is what which determines. Many of them, like their dream is to play in big Spanish clubs like Barcelona and Real Madrid. So why? Because there they find it more comfortable compared to what they would be finding in the England, okay, or other areas. So that is basically what Lee is here talking about. Now very important thing is to mug up these theories. अगर मुझे माइग्रेशन में अच्छे आंसर्स लिखने हैं तो एक वो जो वोकैबुलरी की बात की हमने वो मेरे दिमाग में होना चाहिए, एंड सेकंड ये थ्योरीज मेरे माइंड में होनी चाहिए. इफ आई नो दीज थ्योरीज प्रॉपरली आई विल बी एबल टू राइट वेरी वेरी गुड आंसर्स ऑन माइग्रेशन. ठीक है. सो यहाँ पर अभी हमने बहुत सारे तरह के माइग्रेशन बोले. सो सेवरल टाइप्स ऑफ माइग्रेशंस आर देयर. आई एम स्टॉपिंग फॉर टुडे.